What's up guys, my name is Timbo and today we're going to be taking a closer look at the Dreaming City. A little over a week ago by now, Bungie released a short trailer giving us a preview of the city, what it looks like, what types of endgame activities we will be doing there, and the rewards we can earn inside. And while the Dreaming City has a lot to offer, like me, call me. Today we are going to focus on the one aspect Bungie didn't give too much info about, that being the raid. I did this sort of thing before Destiny 2 came out, and many of you enjoyed the discussion back then, so I figured it wouldn't be a bad idea to do the same with Forsaken. However, instead of theorizing where the raid will take place, today we will be taking a look at some lore as well as what the boss might be. And this will also be tying in slightly with the video I made a few weeks back at a potentially evil Mara Sov. Nowhere in here am I going to think Mara is evil, but I don't know, you'll see. It has been revealed that the Dreaming City's raid will be like a mashup of the Vault of Glass and King's Fall, which sounds amazing in itself with more boss encounters than a Destiny raid has ever had. With that being said though, we are going to fix our attention to the final boss, who will be the Atheon, Crota, Oryx, Axis, Callus of this raid. Despite us knowing close to nothing, there is a rather unexpected direction this can go in that has a decent amount of evidence backing it up. So without further ado, you know the drill. Close that inappropriate tab, and let's get into it. One important thing to note before we head any further is that the raid in this expansion is supposed to be tied in with the main storyline in Forsaken, making the raid feel like the ultimate culmination or climax of events in the main narrative, similarly to what they did with Oryx in The Taken King. Thank the Jesus. So that means the raid should have something to do with the Awoken or Scorn or Uldren or something like that. We also know that the final boss is supposed to be a big monster, also similar to what they did with Oryx. It might not be literally as big as him, but what I got from these interviews with Bungie was that you aren't going to be fighting objects or really going through many encounters. There are going to be boss fights with tangible foes to battle and defeat. With that being said, who can it be then? For starters, right off the bat, I'm just going to kick it off with the lame, obvious route they can take, just stating that the final boss might be a character that we have never seen or heard of before. It could also just be some random, big fallen dude. This enemy could be a foe we won't hear of until we start playing Forsaken, making it impossible to predict. You can't compare this to what they did in Rise of Iron, where they announced the enemy as Siva, had the Iron Lords be the boss in the campaign, and then just shoved this random spider dude named Axis to fight in the raid. They could just be doing something along those lines. But hoping that they aren't and they tie in a known piece of lore or something, what could it be? Well, I'm glad you asked. Long story short, this theory believes that the raid boss or Dreaming City in general will somehow involve the Ahamkara. From here on out, the rest of this is speculation and theory, nothing more. So you can feel free to believe all of this, none of it, or some here and some there. For all of you out there that don't know, the Ahamkara are a mysterious and powerful dragon-like species that arrived in the solar system shortly after the Traveler did. They were known as wish-fulfilling dragons who were sought out by any in search of things like knowledge, power, and endgame currency. Now at first the Ahamkara and the Guardians didn't have any issues with one another, however that didn't last for long. After a lot of debate, the Vanguard decided that the bargains that were being made came at too high of a price, so they decided to do what all Guardians are best at, pressing right trigger. This led to what is known as the Great Hunt, in which all of the Ahamkara were made extinct. Or so they say. Ooh. Survivors have been rumored to have been spotted as far out as Jupiter and Io. Since then, Guardians have been using their bone remains to make nice little exotic bracelets and necklaces, aka the exotic armor pieces such as Skull of Dire Ahamkara, Claws of Ahamkara, Bones of Ao, etc. And one last important thing to note before moving on is that in the description for almost all of these pieces, the Guardian is referred to as the Bearer. Now right around the time of Warmind, another Ahamkara piece of armor was brought forward into Destiny 2, that being the sealed Ahamkara's grasps. Now the exotic itself is pretty meh, but what's found in the lore tab is what we want to take a look at. Without showing all of the text, basically, within this phrase, there is a pair of truths and then one lie. The phrase being this: brother, ally once more, sends his regards. Dreamer, awakened, the bearer shall meet. Light fades, deep within the prison. So like I said, one of these statements is false, and the others are true. Basically, we're playing two truths and a lie in this game. I think the lie is pretty easy to spot. Okay. That of course being the first phrase. In my opinion, the brother referred to here has got to be Uldren, the Queen's brother, and he is by no means seen as an ally. I suppose that this could change, but seeing as how he murdered Cade, it seems unlikely that this statement is true. Moving on to the second phrase, and I'm just going to go over these really quickly. The bearer in here clearly is referencing us, the player, the guardian, and then we have the dreamer that is being awakened. For the sake of time, in this theory, the dreamer being awakened is the Queen of the Reef, Mara Sov. I will explain why I think this is in a lot more detail in a little bit. And then lastly, light fading within the prison. In Destiny 2, when you die, your light fades away. The prison here has got to be referencing the prison of elders, and the one whose light is fading away is none other than Cade, killed and forsaken at the hands of Prince Uldren. So from here we have our two truths, our lie. We've identified what is going on in the lore tab pretty well. I'm proud of you guys. But you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the Ahamkara and the Dreaming City? Why is Mara Sov this dreamer? What we're going to look at next are a few more pieces of lore, and then I'm gonna try to tie all this together for you guys. Now, around this same time, there were 3 new Trials weapons that were released, and within the lore tabs of these weapons comes some much needed context and information. Note that as I'm reading this, it's in the perspective of the 9, and when they're talking amongst themselves, the different styles of text represent a different person. So for example, all of the text written in caps is the same person, and so on. You'll understand when I show it on screen, I'm sure. The first weapon I want to take a look at is Motion to Compel. It reads, "Look, her plan is coming together. Always the clever one, always the smug one. She plays with weighted odds. Odds we weighted. Shall we intervene?" I can't take this seriously. No, not yet. Be patient. Wait until the dynasty falls. In this passage, the 9 to me are referring to the beginning of the Taken King, where Mara Sov is fighting Oryx's dreadnought. In the Taken King, Mara refers to this plan several times. What the plan is never specified, but now we see that it has something to do with the 9. The 9 say they will eventually intervene, but not until the dynasty falls. This could be a number of things, but keeping the context with the Awoken, they are most likely referring to the Vestian dynasty. Once Oryx decimates all of the Awoken at the beginning of the Taken King, the Reef falls to lawlessness, the state we see it in at the beginning of Forsaken. Whether the 9 will intervene directly or indirectly like they did when they released Skolas, for example, is unknown at this point. The next weapon we will take a look at is the SMG Motion to Suppress, which reads, "A trespasser. You are not welcome here. How did you find us?" "She sent me. You are not your queen. A puppet, defined by scars. We have no need of you. We have our own puppets. Let her speak. I came to discuss the future." Ooh. Now this one juicy. The trespasser could be a number of people, but let's cut to the chase, okay? It's clearly Eris Morn. Eris left the tower at the time of the Age of Triumph. At the beginning of the Taken King, Mara is talking to Eris. At the end of the Taken King, Eris appears, refers to her queen, says that she has accepted her fate and will not fail. I made like 3 videos on this, so that's why I'm going through it so fast. Now we have here a trespasser defined by scars, coming to the 9, a group already established to be involved in the Queen's plan somehow to discuss the future. It's obviously Eris here, not a doubt in my mind. And now lastly, we have our last weapon, a shotgun named Fellwinter's Lie. I mean Motion to Vacate. I still have nightmares about Fellwinter's Lie. And it reads, "Remember the slaughter. It was no slaughter. Our children, stolen constructs, not ours. I can still hear the echoes, hallucinations, 10,000 dying wishes. We were merciful. We should have chosen otherwise. The dreamer survived only to fall. Rid yourselves of this regret." I don't know why I find this so funny. Now this one at first is pretty confusing, and even after dissecting it, it's still pretty confusing. But there is one piece of info we can take out of here that is very important. We have established that the dreamer is Mara Sov, and in this passage it is said that the dreamer survived. People have been debating for a long time whether Mara is even alive or not, and here we pretty much have confirmation of that. The rest of this passage to me is talking about this slaughter, which most likely, once again, referring to the beginning of the Taken King when Oryx wrecks the Awoken with an insanely high KD. And this part with just how they're talking just further confirms that the 9 had a big part to play in this event. We've known for a while that Mara and the 9 have done business, I guess you could say, with one another before, but this passage especially shows that they have a great involvement in whatever this plan is. They could very well be the ones pulling all the strings. So at this point, we know what is happening. That's made pretty clear. What is left up in the air is why this is happening. What is this plan? How is Eris involved? How are the Nine and the Awoken related? And how will this tie into the Forsaken storyline with Uldren and the Scorn and all this stuff? Will it even tie in at all, or is this just a tease for something even further down the line? Well, unfortunately, there is no way of knowing for sure. And it's also very hard to predict because there are just so many directions they can go with this. There's so many characters involved and events. I mean, this goes all the way back to the Taken King. What I can give you though, other than my love, is this. I really think that somewhere in the Dreaming City is Mara Sov, most likely at the core. And she will be sleeping, having us be the ones to wake her up, just like the prophecy says. What I personally think might happen is that the main campaign will be a revenge tale about Uldren, us hunting him down after he kills Cade, shooting him in the face, it explodes. From there on out, something along the lines will happen that brings us to the Dreaming City that could potentially tie in with Eris and the Nine, or at the very least, Mara. And then when we regroup with Mara, she will lead us into a different story that maybe involves her plan or something, who knows. I don't know if this event where we wake up the dreamer will be in an endgame quest or something, but personally, what I'm hoping for is in the raid. The last however many minutes of this video have been very fact-based, but from here on out, I'm just gonna go kinda crazy. So be warned. I don't know about you, but the look and feel of the Dreaming City, how Bungie talks about it, screams to me this castle vibe, almost. And if you add the dreamer, Mara, now it has this sort of princess, or I guess in this case, queen, locked in a tower vibe. The Dreaming City is supposed to be mysterious, it's supposed to be tricky with all these sorts of hidden areas and puzzles and stuff like that, with some sort of monster at its core. And if the raid is about waking up Mara in some way, and she's supposed to be, you know, a princess sleeping, locked in a tower, waiting for Shrek to save her, what is always the monster guarding the princess? A dragon. Now that's not me saying that the Ahamkara or something similar to that is going to come into the game as a raid boss of sorts. All I'm saying is that it'd be freaking dope. It would be so different than anything we've seen before. It would be cooler than any type of Scorn Fallen Bungie could draw up. I don't know if anything like this will happen. It's just a thought I wanted to throw out in here at the very end of the video. But if it does end up happening like this in some way, shape, or form, you heard it here first. But guys, that is some lore and theory on the underlying storyline leading up to Forsaken, involving Mara Sov, the Nine, Eris, and the Dreaming City. In the comments, let me know what you think about all of this. What do you think is going to happen in Forsaken's endgame? What is the monster at the core of the Dreaming City? Dang, that sounds cool. If you enjoyed the video, if you could please leave a like. If you'd like to support me on Patreon or follow me on other social media sites such as Twitter and Instagram, I'll leave links to those in the description below. And lastly, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.